Welcome to Running in the 70s, where we interview, meet, and get to know athletes of all kind who were running in the 70s. I'm your host, Matthew Kleinowski. Welcome back to part 2 with Coach Doug Watts, Edinburgh's National Hall of Fame coach. Enjoy.
One other thing, we're talking about training. You want to know some things we did different?
Yeah.
Okay, we did some hard practices, okay. One of my favorite practices, and I have so many good feelings about practice, is once a year, no more than once a year, we ran a workout both in track and cross country called the Percy Cerruti workout. Now, you know who Percy Cerruti was.
I heard the name. I don't remember. Oh, okay.
Oh, hurt, pain, and agony.
Yeah.
All right, coach. He's my stereotypical idol. All right, he was coach of Herb Elliott back in the '60s.
Right.
He ran at Camp Portsea in Australia, where he isolated runners from the rest of society, his own little camp. Okay, and trained and really ran hard and did stuff that nobody else did. Herb Elliott set the Australian record on the day after Percy Cerruti made the team hike 30 miles from camp to where the meet site was as part of their overall training. So he did this broad range of stuff. The famous Percy Cerruti story is that he brings Herb Elliott to the sand dune that they have by Camp Portsea. Percy Cerruti at 60 years of age, Popeye, if you want a mental image in your mind, big calves, big shoulders, runs up and down this hill till exhaustion. Another time he puts Herb Elliott at the crossroad of the cross-country pass they have, and Percy runs this circuit pass forth, going past Herb Elliott time after time again, and after he finishes, Percy Cerruti comes up to him all sweaty and dirty and says, "You may be able to run faster than me, but you'll never run harder than me." So that kind of motivation was pretty serious. So I had a Percy Cerruti workout, which means that we're going to have, in true essence, only a hard repetition run workout, okay? But you aren't going to know what distance you're going to run. You're not going to know how fast I'm going to ask you to run it. You're not going to be able to know where I'm going to send you to go. You're going to have to respond immediately when I tell you to do it. So the practice usually goes like this. Everybody starts off and runs the first mile. Usually it's a road course that we're running because I can control it more. So they go through the first mile. I hurry in the van and go up to the mile mark, and then you watch them. The team comes together because they're going to come with coach, and then he's going to tell you what to do. You get beside the van, and I go, jog another mile. Oh, and you hear four-letter words. You know, they're all ready to go, and you don't let them go. And then somewhere along the way, I sneak up to them. Okay, I want a mile in 4:45. Go. They have to respond to it. There'd be other places where they would go where I would send them at the worst part of their interval up a hill, okay, and they have to run the last part up the hill and die. There was lots of times I lied to them what they're going to do, and as they come to the finish line, they go, "No, you got to know another half mile," even though I made them run hard to that particular point. And so, again, what was I trying to teach? That you can respond, that you don't have to be in control of the pace. If other people do something, you can call upon it to do it. The most famous story was one of my national champions, Eamon Wu from China. We're running a Percy, and I told him the workout was over with, and then 400 meters, we got to go a mile up Chick Hill. And Eamon froze. He couldn't respond. The rest of the team took away, ran away, okay? Yeah. And he was just so frustrated, he couldn't do it. After he won nationals, he said that the big remembers was that day that he would never, ever be caught unawares again from that particular practice.
Wow.
So, okay, that was a good tactic. So Percy Cerruti was once a year, and our kids worked for it, okay, to do it right.
Just talking with you now, just getting to hear your stories most for the first time. This reminds me of your 800 meters, your 880 race. Is there something that was in your mind from that?
Absolutely. It is the genesis of Percy Cerruti workout, okay? I failed. I couldn't respond. I had no secondary race plan. I couldn't respond when I needed to respond. So let's practice 5 or 6 times this workout, changing your brain so you adapt and be able to do that without any doubt, without any thinking. You're just going to respond to it. You're going to be able to do it.
Let's talk about the 70s team, the personalities. What else was going on in running and equipment? I know you were the rags, the running in jeans, uniforms were just not like everybody else. But what did you do for equipment, and were the shoes adequate? Were they good? What about the individuals? I want to talk about what they did in the summers.
Okay. Poor Antignoli, the shoes he wore, I don't even remember what they were, but they weren't very good. I remember first Tiger Cortez came out.
Yep.
Had a heel that was, I don't know, like an inch off the ground or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're in heaven. And Carver, Finnish shoe company, came out with these bright orange and black M stitched on this Carvers with elk hide. Wow, these are special. It was lucky we got good and got into the 80s. I knew who was the coach at Allegheny Community College, who had been roommates with Phil Nike when they were in school. So I had a very good relationship with him. And Nike supported us in the 80s, okay? Not a lot, but we got $500 of free shoes and had another contract that went out later that they got at wholesale price. The best part was in the 80s, Nike was making all weird colored shoes for their elite runners.
Right.
They sent to us. So I still remember my favorite shoe of all time, my red and white Mariahs. I would die for my red and white. And all these weird, beautiful shoes, okay? And all the other teams hated us because we had all this special stuff. Nike changed their marketing when Salazar won New York wearing an off-colored pair of shoes. And so it turned out that wasn't a good marketing thing because nobody could buy that color of shoes. So they started only making regular shoes from that point on. But at least that, without Nike in the beginning, the 80s, I don't know how we would have ever come back after we fell apart in the 70s.
Yeah. What about the soft sole shoes? Like on the logo of this podcast, I put a picture of Nike waffles, the green and yellows. Were those something you guys used to?
We definitely went to Nike waffles when they came out because you ran a lot of courses, as I remember then, that went through gravel, dirt road, cross pavement, okay? And so we had the waffles before any Eastern regional teams had them, I'll tell you that. Another place that I remember everybody hated us is we had all this fashion crooks. I liked the waffles. I really thought they were, I didn't have any problem with them. But you get to today's shoes, every coach tells me today that the new racing spikes are worth 2 to 4% energy reduction. So finally our women's records have been broken, and I figure out what 2% is over this distance, and no, we still ran faster back in the 80s than what they're running now.
Yeah. What was the team while it was together, but during the summers? What were those guys up to, and what did you prescribe for them during their summers?
Mileage. Cross-country success was predicated on summer mileage. We ran more miles than anybody else. I know when I gave a lecture, or somebody asked me, what's the farthest any one of your women ever ran? Amy Perry ran 110 miles a couple of times. And again, she was a distance type of runner who could handle that, okay? And if you want to speak of somebody who could handle mileage, Jeff Foster, his bigger body, he became a very good ultra runner later on, primarily because his body could withstand all that pounding for sure. You had other kids that couldn't run that much mileage. But again, when we ran our mileage, we ran hard. And I can tell you Olympian, who I won't use his name because I don't want to embarrass him, he's still around. who was good in college. Okay, he ended up being a national champion, but stayed overnight with us once after a meet. And so when he went out on a Sunday run with the team, he came back to me and he goes, "What the heck is wrong with your guys? We stepped outside the cottage doors and they start running sub 5-minute miles right off the bat." That's what they do. They don't do much warm-up stuff. After the Olympics, I talked with him later and he goes, "I just didn't know it any better that you had to run that hard. At my school, it was my responsibility as number one just to help the number 7 guy. And I find out at Edinburgh, the number 1 guy had no responsibility to the 7th guy. It was the 7th guy's responsibility to get up to the number 1 guy." I go, "Yep, that was us, individual training. You had to run hard in order to be good." So I think we trained, certainly against the conference, we trained much more intensity.
Yeah. Let's talk about the rise from Dave Antagnoli to the dominant teams of the mid-'70s. How did you get from the great individual success of Dave Antagnoli? It opened the doors to you to be able to recruit the kind of people you could train, to those dominant teams of the 70s, and then the abrupt end.
Yeah, recruiting was, I looked for the kids that could handle that kind of stuff and would be willing to try and do it, be willing to take that much of a load on. And I swear I could sit in the recruiting room or home and watch kids, women in particular, when I tell them what we're going to do and how much is going to be expected. I could remember them just shrinking into the couch. And, "Oh, this isn't an Edinburgh runner." And not every kid could really modify once they got here. Some didn't think it would be as hard as they could do that. Okay. We talked about in training doing some things that were very tough, okay? And after Antagnoli left, one of the standard workouts that taught you to be tough was the Chicken Hill run, okay? Chicken Hill was a 13 run, 6 miles flat around the mountain, 2 miles uphill, 1 mile sharp downhill, 1 mile flat, almost 2 miles back up another mountain. It's not really a hill, and onto the finish line, okay? And it became almost to my detriment, at least in one case. We ran it too much. We ran it too hard. It may have cost one kid a national championship one year, and I'll take responsibility for that. But after I retired, and this should probably be on your podcast, I wrote a 3-verse poem about Chicken Hill, okay? And it's not that long, and I wouldn't mind reading it to you, okay?
That'd be great.
I actually read it twice at U.S. Track and Field Cross Country Coaches Association presentations, and the last time I did, okay, I got emotional at the end, but I looked up and there's almost 300 coaches standing up clapping. They got what it is. In this poem, it's basically who Edinburgh was and what we did on these kind of runs. So let me read you Chicken Hill. There's some, by the way, there's some things in here that you really don't know what it is. The trees, that's where we're at, okay? But we'll get here's basically what the poem was like. The early morning's fog's just lifting over the tree. Strip off your sweats. Double knot your racing flats. Runner set, go. You head south down Perry Lane, much too fast. Left at Kinner, hitting the 1 mile mark, closely bunched. Upperclassmen admonishing the freshmen to stay up. Right at Arneman, blowing past the 2 mile, seconds faster than your high school PR. Klein Hill on the left, where in your freshman year, you seriously considered transferring during your 3rd rep up it. The van is at 3. You basically ignore coaches yelling. So focused are you. You already know it's fast. The sun hits you, then shade. A doe, whitetail flashing, bounds into the evergreens. A stupid woodchuck stands tall in the field of view, the crazy, much too skinny kids running past. Van, wheezes a runner behind you, seconds before Watts zooms by at 60 miles an hour, dusting all. You share an unspoken experience with teammates, knowing the developing runners behind were left without being given their split. Functional punishment. Better run farther and faster next summer or be left behind again. A lesson learned years ago. You crank miles 3 to 4 and then 4 to 5, clearly dreading the too long mile 6 that seems to never end. Right over Rice, over the bridge and up Chick Hill, the horrendously steep incline at 7 1/4, imploring you to walk. But no, never. Water at 8, throw the cup aside, begin the severe pounding downhill to 9. Let yourself go, long strides, steal seconds from the finish result. Move up on the list. Left on the highway, lift a middle finger to the car that refuses to yield at the light. You're in tired rhythm now, near maximum oxygen consumption. Rags long faded, survivors not smiling now, strung out a 1/4 mile. You turn left to engage Chicken Hill. Domestic foul long gone since 1980, but the tradition not to chicken out drives you up, refusing any falter. Quads ache, breath severely labored, miss the pain of it, miss the joy of it. By 12 you are down, the finish line inevitable, fear of failure dissipated, a moment of reflection available. You know what? You're a goddamn Edinburgh cross-country runner. Is there anything better in the world? We will always wonder, maybe not outwardly voicing how much we love those runs, the effort, the competitive results, the tradition of toughness and success. BOROXC. It's a part of who I am.
We got that was perfect the whole way through. It was clear. Yeah, brilliant. When did you write that?
I wrote that after retirement. Every Edinburgh kid can tell you exactly what's going on there.
Yeah.
Actually, there was a young coach, a young female coach after my presentation who, critique isn't the right word, but wrote her own little paper about what every one of those things meant psychologically or physiologically. It was pretty cool, which I have that one too.
What happened to your other sports? That track and running dominated your coaching career. You started out with assistant basketball coaching too, but when did you decide, okay, I'm going to focus on cross country and track?
Football wasn't in my genes, okay? I wasn't enough of a go kill kind of guy. Basketball, not to tell another story, but when I was the JV coach at Walsh Jets basketball, I believed in warm-up, okay? So I made my JV team scrimmage for 2 minutes before the game because I want to start aerobically. I don't want to start the game anaerobically and build up lactic acid. And I still remember parents yelling at me how stupid I am. I'm using up their energy. And I would tell, no, you don't use up energy. You get another resource to be able to compete better. And I like basketball. Okay, I'm sorry. One more basketball story, okay?
Yeah.
I'm the JV coach at Akron St. Vincent High School. I have no players that are any good. Our 9th game, we're ahead at halftime. Oh, boy. But in the second half, the other team starts to press. My team can't handle the press. They steal the ball. They make a layup. We go behind. I'm so angry. I jump up off the bench. I have my sport coat in my hand and rip it right up the back seam of my coat. Rip it off, throw it in the stands. I'm that mad. Teller gets down the last second of the my little guard steals the ball. We're 1 point behind. He's driving down. The clock is ticking. 3 seconds, 2 seconds, 1 second. We get the shot off. It's off. He missed it. The referee goes, I don't know if the shot's any good. I have to go to the timekeeper. The timekeeper shot no good. You lose the game. The scorer doesn't score. I'm furious. I run over to the scorekeeper and yell, I can't believe this. Homered at home. Go into the locker room. I've got my head in my hand. Head coach, who was a lawyer, on his regular time, comes in and puts his arm around me and says, Doug, I'm going to tell you something that's for your future coaching development. You know that guy you just yelled at, the timekeeper? I go, yes. He's a St. Vincent alumni, and we're very proud to have him. And to know that his regular job, he is the Chief Supreme Justice of the Ohio Supreme Court. Oh, my. And that said, you know what? Basketball isn't as much fun to coach as track and field. I may be a little more better suited, but it changed me altogether. Another one of those emotional development kind of things that I always remembered what a fool I was, and you got to keep things under control, which is easier to do in track, cross country.
What were your guys doing, the superstar team from the mid-'70s? What were they doing while they were still part of the team in the summers in terms of other racing? They just did their thing?
They just did their thing, yeah. I don't remember them running a whole lot of road races or anything like that. I think we pretty well set to just run our mileage and change our cardiovascular systems as much as we could do.
And you guys were basically unbeatable a couple years in the mid-'70s.
Yep.
And
track too.
And not all the runners from the famous team finished at Edinburgh or even completed all their years of eligibility. How did that happen?
It's 1977, where we just returned home from a dual meet track against the University of Tennessee, NCAA Division I champions, okay? Yeah, Tennessee scored 80-some points. We scored 40-some points. The University of Miami scored 20 or 30 points in its tri-meet. But we're pretty darn good, okay? I get called into the athletic director's office. The vice president is there, and they tell me that next year, Edinburgh State College is going to bring women's athletics tilt into the program. And as such, not enough money, so all male teams in their budgets are going to cut some money from our budget to support the women.
The males are going to cut their budget to support the women's team, and then we lost signal again.
I don't know if I should be moving around or what. I'm told that we're going to have to sacrifice part of our budget in order to be able to support the women's new athletic program. What does that mean, I ask? You can't go to any more big meets. You can't go to Notre Dame. You can't go to Penn State. You can't go to the Penn Relays. You can't run Tennessee anymore. And I go, but we're a non-scholarship team. We have little money to start with. The reason these kids are here is because they're running against good people. That's the only thing that we're able to offer them. And the vice president says, I don't see why they can't run just as fast against Westminster as they can against Tennessee. Basically, I'd say with that kind of support, I sold off my team.
Muggleton left.
Yeah, Muggleton got himself to Arkansas. 3 other kids went on to be Division I All-Americans. Oh. Another Division II All-American. Jeff ran for Nike then for a number of years before at age 36 he came back and finished his degree and ran with us for a year again, eligible college.
That's probably a good story to tell at some point too.
Yeah, I'm sure. So I went fishing for 3 years. A new president came in. I was called in and says, why aren't you good anymore? And I said, because the school won't support us at this minimal level to run good people. So I went fishing for 3 years. The new president comes in. He asked me, why aren't we good anymore? And I said, because the school doesn't want us to be any good. They can't support us at a level that we can recruit in the kind of kids to be good. Go back to what you were doing before. We'll help you that way. So, 3 years later, we're national champs again. Got to recruiting, got a chance to go out, and brought in some good people.
Wow. And how did recruiting change over that into the 80s for you? Had recruiting changed yet?
No, recruiting had not changed much. The recruiting changes and the kids change after 1994, 93, 95, somewhere in there, things start to get different.
How close were you as a busy coach and a professor? How much were you staying in contact with graduates and people that left the program?
I see Facebook, I get their comments. An interesting phenomenon that's happened in the last 8 years or so. I get a phone call, Coach, how are you? I haven't talked with you for a long time. How are you doing? I just want to tell you, I'm really sorry. I could have been better. I could have did more. I could have ran more mileage. I'm sorry I wasn't as good as I could have been. And my answer in every case was, I don't remember you ever not giving me everything that you wanted to. I remember no problem with you training or anything like that. But apparently over the years, you get old and you have regrets. The Antignoli group is a pretty close group because they get together every once in a while. We just had one last October where 8 of us got together and had lunch. Yeah. Beardsley and Dr. Shin, Roy Shin, are pretty close. And a couple other of the 90s guys are pretty personable. We share jokes.
Apart from that period where the rumors and the allegations of improper stuff going on, how was your relationship with other coaches who weren't as successful and with other programs?
Yeah, very good point. For a number of years, I wanted nothing to do with most coaches, okay? The story goes, when we won our first national title, I've never been one afraid to grab a microphone and make a speech, okay? So at the NEI banquet, I went up and I made my little speech at the banquet thanking Bill Silverberg, the coach at Eastern New Mexico, for his recruitment of international Olympians, Mike Boyd and others. We were so fired up to be able to run against his runners. I thanked him for that opportunity and him doing that. Of course, everybody hated Bill Silverberg because he was bringing the first of the Kenyan and the international people in the early 70s. So after a while, I walked down after the speech, walked to him, went over and shook his hand, and he looked at me very sarcastically and goes, yeah, nice speech. I go, yeah, I know I meant that. And he goes, yeah, they all like you now. Win another time and see what it's going to be like. And he proved absolutely, without a doubt, right on the numbers. It bothered me, okay? It bothered me that people thought my kids were stupid. That's what bothered me the most. The drug stuff and everything else, I have to admit, I played that up, okay? You don't think Kutztown was afraid of us because they thought we took drugs, okay? I know Millersville did, so I have a direct confession from one of their teams how scared they were of us, the way we looked and all the rumors that they heard about us. So I didn't want anything to do with other coaches. They went to the bar. I didn't drink. I didn't ever have a beer. I just went with the kids. And the other good thing about our program is when we traveled, we just didn't go to the meets. We did tourist stuff. When my alumni come back now, we don't talk about the meets very much. We talk about, remember when we went to Tijuana and the Mexican, and all of that stuff. That's what we run. And I really think that travel that we did and the extra stuff that we did really added to what our team was in any way. The coaching association changed different when the coaching association, track and field and cross country coaching association really started. And I decided that I ought to help on the national level. And so I invested myself pretty good there. Surprised a lot of people with my political acuity to being able to get things done. I became the NCAA Division II Track and Cross Country Coaches Association president, and we changed all kinds of things, mostly on the advice of my lawyer vice president, who said, Watts, you can't do things like that. They're going to kill you. We changed the Constitution. We made money. We brought in 3 times as many members as we ever had before. And actually, the big-time association, when it became one, Division I, II, III, NEI, everything else, took our format. I became on the board of directors for 8 or 9 years, and I invested quite a bit in that association. I'm as proud of anything that I've done as what I've done in the association to help make what it is today. and I enjoyed my time doing that too. That was fun. A lot of work, but I enjoyed that part.
Yeah, it seems like you're not shied away from doing the work. Let's talk about coaching awards and recognition from the sport. Has that come for you?
Oh, yeah, I'm a legend. Come on.
I know you're a legend, written down on paper. What official awards and recognition did you get?
I'm probably how many Hall of Fames? High School Hall of Fame, Ohio Hall of Fame, Edinburgh Hall of Fame, Erie Hall of Fame, not the Pennsylvania Hall of Fame. I'm not in that. And the most coveted one is the U.S. Track and Field Cross Country Coaches Association Hall of Fame. There's a couple of awards they passed out to for the work I've done in that kind of environment with the Coaches Association. Coaches of the Year awards, I gave away almost all my stuff. So I don't even remember how many there were.
Yeah.
Oh, you want one trophy? I'm getting too much on you here.
No, it's good.
Later, as you got into the 2000, and it started way earlier, but any trophies we won at Mickey Mouse meets, I gave the kids. They ever kept were nationals and pen relays or something like that. We gave the kids those trophies. Somewhere in the 2000s, one of the kids, we would run a little meet, the first cross-country meet of the season in Buffalo, against nobody any good. And so somehow I would give that trophy away, and they took it as a new tradition. They would bury that trophy at the course where they ran, okay? I never knew anything about it. Honestly, I had no idea whatsoever. Then it changed to they would smash the trophy and throw it all over the place, which was caught. Unfortunately, it was a memorial meet to after some guy who died. So that was bad. So later on, after we apologized and stuff, when we went to Niagara Falls after the meet, we did the trophy over Niagara Falls every year. So there's a bunch of trophies at the base of the American Falls, let's put it that way.
That's brilliant. What about the sunset of your career of coaching and getting out of the National Coaches Association? How was that transition away from it, the sport for you?
Without getting into the details of how disappointed I was in the appointment of who would be the coach after me, that's too negative a story to really talk about. That still
You still feel
irritates me.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I won't get into it. The coach that's there now I like pretty much. Okay, he's trying to do the right thing. The cross-country coach, forget the track coach. The first 2 years, I had planned to volunteer for the teams. I had a team coming back that I knew was top 10 women, top 5 guys. We had 10 all-regional runners returning, and I had a commitment. And it was only because they offered me a ton of money. I'd be silly not to retire after 44 years. And the disloyalty shown by the woman hired as track coach, I took the high road and exited myself away from those kids, which really bothered me for 2 years. Did a lot of fishing, though. I'll have to say that. My wife took me to all the rock and roll concerts that I missed while I was coaching, okay? I have quite a resume of, I loved AC/DC. That was great in Canada. That was still my favorite one. So I remember, so this is what marijuana smells like? Okay, this is cool. And now this will be the last year that Edinburgh will have any athlete, one girl, who has any association with me before they came. And it was the last who came to one of my last high school camps and said she became a good runner because she came to high school camp, and I told her she could be good someday.
Wow.
And after this, it'll be all brand new, all new. So I'm pretty well disassociated with the program, with some bitterness. Not the alumni, just things have changed. And that's the way it is. You go away, and it's just the way it is. So let's go fishing tomorrow. That's okay.
Yeah, I was warned if I started talking fishing with you, we might need another 30 hours.
One fishing thing. It's probably an NCAA rules violation, but I took a lot of kids fishing while they're on my team, okay?
Yeah.
It became, as some other people will tell you, one of the best bonding things. These kids are trapped in the boat with me for 6 or 8 hours, hearing all kind of stories. And then, of course, I have things to hold over them about how they threw up in the boat and things like that. Let me tell you a fishing story that resonates pretty much with how I could be sarcastic funny, okay? I have Eamon Wu, Chinese freshman, okay? We finished camp. We got 5 days between college preseason camp and school start. Eamon, you want to go fishing? Yes, coach. Have you been fishing before? Yes. Do you know how to fish? Yes. He's just saying yes to anything. He doesn't even half know what I'm saying. So I take him fishing. We're catching a number of smallmouths. Pretty good day. It's pretty wavy, though. And I'm looking at Eamon, and he's not yellow anymore. He's more green than he is Chinese yellow, okay? So I go, Eamon, you hungry? No, coach, no hungry. Look, I spent all morning making you an American sandwich, and you're going to turn this down? Okay, so I hand him the sandwich. I have photos. He's got the sandwich in his hand. He opened his mouth. He's about to put the sandwich in his mouth. And I go, Eamon, look inside what kind of sandwich it is. He opened up the bread, and I'd caught a mouse that morning, and there was a mouse in between the two pieces of bread. Eamon barfs all over Lake Erie. Okay. Go 10 years down the road. He's inducted in the NCAA Division II Hall of Fame. Eamon gets up and makes this great presentation. Team, individual runners, Edinburgh, coach, school. The Chinese were so team-orientated. It was great. After he makes this wonderful speech, he turns to the audience and goes, other coaches, no Coach Watts? No many jokes. Coach Watts, mouse, still not funny. Breaks everybody out.
Oh, that's fantastic. How did you recruit him? How did he get to Edinburgh?
I had a phone call from a Division I program in the East. I really can't remember what it was. And the coach said that they had a Chinese professor there that had 3 recruits. So, yeah, we were interested in them. I really wanted the girl that had run 32:15 10K. And that was in 2000, so she's going to come in and be one of the best runners in the country. I go to admissions. We go through all of the, and I have a very good relationship with the international office. We did have foreign tuition waivers, okay? And I had proved over the years to those people that we took care of our international kids, and they were all successful, okay? They were all successful. They all had done very well. And the admissions go, we have no other Chinese at Edinburgh, so you don't have a community or anything to support. So we'll take the one with the best TOEFL scores or whatever they called them then. And then if that works out, you can have the other 2. The one with the best scores was Eamon. So we got Eamon the first year, and of course he was national champ. And as we went to get the second year, the girl got married and didn't run again. And the other guy ran 2:08 marathon and stayed home in China. So that was 3 pretty good recruits. We all love Eamon. We all love Eamon.
I wanted to ask you about this never presented presentation you have on toughness, training to be tough or something like that. You said you'd never presented it.
I've reviewed it with a couple of the present coaches that I know, okay, that are friends, okay, and they're all telling me that I can't ask what I professed how to train to be tough is impossible to do today. And I understand a little bit how or why, because somewhere in the 2006, 2008, we just had a power outage here.
Oh, wow.
Disappeared.
Is this a landline or a cell phone?
Okay, I'm going to walk outside. I'm walking outside.
This is a little better. Do you have a telephone line that's a wired line?
Yeah, I do, but I'm walking outside. I should get a better reception here. Actually, the sun's out today. I don't mind being out here.
Oh, nice. Okay.
All right, is it okay now?
It is. And what the last thing I got recorded was when you said you couldn't do it anymore because around 2006, 2008, something happened.
It changed there because that was the first year that I've had somebody who didn't buy into the Edinburgh program and wasn't willing to invest in total self. He was the first social media guy that I ever contacted with, and he was friends with people all over the country. And he went summer to train with the University of Colorado. And so came back and had his own ideas, okay, and started to cause difficulties within the team, which had never happened to me before.
Huh.
Then later on, another kid, God told him not to run the conference. What? God came down and told me that I shouldn't run the conference with the team. So that was a different one for sure. Later on, yet another kid who said, I'm Division I material now, and I want this, I want that, I want this. So I said, fine, go Division I. And I still remember my athletic director, why are you getting rid of this kid? He's your best kid. He wants to be Division I, and we're not Division I. He went Division I and failed miserably. So I have to do that came around from him. Things are different today. Kids are too involved. We run chicken hell, and I'm sure there's going to be two of the kids today that would say, well, that's no good. I'm transferring. There's a portal. I can get out of here in a second. And that would have meant that a lot of freshmen all through my 70s, 80s, and 90s thought about training with some of the workouts and stuff. I'm sure they did. But they didn't have that year to change or stuck or whatever you want to call it to work their way through that.
Yeah. We talked and mentioned the distance running thing. What about on the track? In the track coach, did you work with parts of the track team apart from the distance team?
There was no other coach. I had no assistant coach till 1999 or 2001, whatever that was.
Yeah.
I was everything. I coached everyone. And in the middle 70s, we had a really good track team.
Yeah.
The 4x1, 40.21 on a pole against the University of Tennessee. I'll have to say probably in the conference the best team, all things in perspective for the year and in times and other kind of stuff through the 70s. But then when we broke up, they were gone. And we were never going to be as good a track team as we were cross country because of the weather. The indoor facility that Edinburgh has now, which is wonderful, okay, certainly changes all that. My gosh, what do you think the number one alumni kids say to me when they come back? How good we could have been if we had an indoor place to train. And I'll tell you, it would have been a lot better track, that's for sure.
How were the politics of track then in the 70s compared? Were there the challenges to the program reputationally?
I don't remember any challenge. I just remember this is what we do. Okay.
Yeah.
I do remember I was interviewed by a reporter at a national cross-country championship. And the reporter said, with notice and looking back at the history, that the Pennsylvania Conference became much more competitive after you got here. Tell me what you thought when you came into the Pennsylvania Conference when you did. And I went, honestly, I thought all the teams were a bunch of rags. I thought they had no perspective, no idea how good they could be, which turned out to be the byline under my picture at the national championship morning paper. Bunch of PSAC, bunch of rags.
That's great.
But it's true. They
Yeah.
had no perspective. Like I told you the story about Westchester and how good they were.
Yeah.
People had no clue. And certainly there were a couple of good runners in the early 70s, too. Pagoni, Bill Bradley, whatever his name was pretty good. But it was Edinburgh that went to the big meets and found out you could be more than what the Pennsylvania Conference thought they could be.
What's going to happen with your unpresented presentation about training for toughness?
Our attention gets back to Orlando, Florida, next to the 3 great bass fishing lakes where the hotel is. I won't put any pressure to go back and make a presentation until then. Then I'll go back and ask if I can't make this presentation and see what coaches think about training to be tough.
Yeah. It sounds like a kind of thing that would be interesting as a TED Talk. It's a very specific thing. Maybe it was a thing for a certain time, but yeah, it would be good to get recorded too. I think a lot of people, certainly all the Edinburgh crew, will enjoy hearing it, and I'm sure everybody who was running in the 70s in Pennsylvania will appreciate hearing from you. You seem to have a great memory of it all. The sincerity that you talk about is very surprising because I've never met you, and you did have a reputation from then that.
I know. No, believe me, I know.
Yeah. And
I was introduced at one presentation somewhere in New Jersey, and the guy was introducing me. He said, I went to school at Slippery Rock, and we used to compete against this guy. And now after I get to meet him, I go, wow, you really don't know until you meet people who they really are.
Yeah, absolutely. What about the things that have changed in the sport, the controversies and the issues of changing technology and the actual use of performance-enhancing drugs that have been a problem on the sport? Did you see that come? Were you aware? When were you aware of it in other teams, or seeing the impact of it or problems with it?
Track and field news, I remember reading about it and all that stuff. I had no concept. The first I ever became aware of drugs was the football team on steroids. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all. I don't have any idea about all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I can't tell you about that.
And this is maybe less interesting. It just occurred to me to ask about it is, what about weight training, resistance training? Did that become part of your effort with runners?
A failure on my coaching part. I was so much into this individual stuff. I ask so much out of my kids. I'm not going to ask them for 3 times a week to come in and lift. Guys, girls, here's the suggestion. If you want to do it on your own and you want to do it, fine and good. But I'm not going to force you to come in and supervise you and do that stuff. A failure within my program. I needed to do more of that. Okay. Of course, if you wanted to have good quads, all you had to do was run cross country because the snow was so deep. Greg Beardsley, who won the national cross country title in the snow, ran internationally with a couple American teams, and he went down to the testing center in Atlanta, and they did all these physiological tests on him, and he did this quad test, and after it was over, the doctor said, you can quit this. So what weight training program did you do to develop this quad endurance that you have? He goes, I ran in the snow that was over my knees. What do you think? I did.
That's great. Yeah, I can relate to this. Yeah, I grew up being a paper boy in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and 4:30 in the morning delivering papers and running through the snow. I think that's how I became a runner. Yeah. Yep. Thank you very much for your time and all this, Sharon. It's great, Coach. It's great. Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have any problems. I'll always be able to do that. So, yeah, a great place to do it. I'll get you in my boat, okay?
Yeah.
And we'll go catch some bass and walleye someday.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks, Coach.
Okay. Thank you. One thing. I have never listened to a podcast. What do I have? I have to subscribe to some?
No, you don't. You don't have internet. So
we have no internet at home, no.
Okay. You can either listen to the library thing. We got to figure out a way. Maybe I can do something like, can I put them on a CD or something?
Yeah. Oh, that would be great.
So maybe I can download it. Fine. Actually, these things are, or a DVD. Maybe I can get the sound on the DVD. Yeah. I'll try to get that. Yeah.
I'm technically deficit, but I can play movies.
Okay.
If I can be any help, okay?
All right. Thanks very much, Coach.
I appreciate it. I have fun doing this. I don't have any problem with this kind of stuff at all.
Great.
Bye.
I guess we'll have to make a DVD recording of Season 1 of Running in the 70s. So Coach Watts and anybody else who's, quote, technologically deficit can listen to them all. I hope you enjoyed another episode of Running in the 70s. Voices, stories, and memories of athletes who were running in the 70s. Until next time, wherever you are, keep looking forward and don't forget to look back.